good afternoon and welcome to the first State of the Union Address. As officers of the British Union Conference, our intention is to create a space where we are able to talk with you about the strategic priorities and give you the opportunity to engage with us as we work together to strengthen our organisation. You will have seen the State of the Union brand in our communications over the last year. This is an exercise in listening. Listening to what we can do better. Listening to those areas of concerns which you have. Listening to how we can develop the organisation positively. Over the coming months, there will be other opportunities for you to engage with us through other focused forums. And to date, we have, under the State of the Union, initiated the President's Council, the Town Hall meetings for the past and currently serving Executive Committee members, the introduction and recruitment of non-executive expert advisors, and now the State of the Union Address. Leading the financial work at the Union gives me a unique perspective as to our unique context as a church, as a charity, and as a corporation, and our unique needs. This provides us with the backdrop whereby we're keen to engage with non-executive expert advisors from across the territory to provide guidance, expertise, and support to our decision-making in specific areas of our work. Led by the President of the BUC, Pastor Eglan, we're proud to have worked with him and the Executive Committee in helping us to envision, embrace, and navigate the change which is required to develop our organisation. My prayer is that we will continue to work together as a union to pursue the mission as we seek to develop our church, charity, and corporation.
Let us pray. O Heavenly Father, Creator, Sustainer, Redeemer, the one who rules the universe, and despite the problems the world is facing and the fulfillment of the prophecies, telling us there will be wars and rumors of wars, yet God has given to His church the authority to let others know that the soon coming of Jesus is not far away. He's just at the doorstep. And we need to have this hope. Today, I pray in a very special way for the British Union Conference and its team, and all those who support the work of the church, both within and without. The Lord has a plan for His people, not a plan to destroy, not a plan that is short-term, but it is a plan to do good, to give them strength for the hours that are theirs. And so, Lord, I pray for the British Union that many will come in at the last day, and that we need not lose hope, but to stand on the promises of God. It is not our work, but His work, and He will work through us. So officers and others, and those outside there, don't fret about the church, but lift up the church in prayer, and that your life become a true example of what Jesus can do for those who trust Him. May God bless you all.
Moses' father-in-law replied, "What you are doing is not good. You and these people who come to you will only wear yourselves out. The work is too heavy for you. You cannot handle it alone. Listen now to me, and I will give you some advice, and may God be with you. You must be the people's representative before God and bring their disputes to him. Teach them his decrees and instructions. Show them the way they are to live and how they are to behave. But select capable men from all the people. Firstly, allow me to apologize for the cancelled state of the Union Address. I will never take for granted the trust you placed in me when joining the meeting and waiting too long for the technical issues to be resolved. My sincere apologies to you and my admiration also for the sacrifices which you made. Over the last few weeks, I'm sure you have been deeply concerned with the surge of riots and disturbing narratives from across the British Isles. I have been in communication with the administrators in your conferences and missions to ascertain the impact on how you as individuals and as a church are coping. I also believe that your communities need your support at this time. These are difficult and trying times. I hope you would have taken an advantage of the opportunity to pray for our country and for the challenges which we as a society face in embracing each other's differences, while also holding or helping your communities in a real and tangible way. For these are the traits which make our Christianity real. It is in these changing times when we are reminded that as a church membership, we need not only to reflect Christ spiritually, but in our interactions with our communities and each other, and also within our organizations. Come, I want you to journey with me as I open a window so that you can see how the British Union Conference, the BUC, is doing in the Trans-European Division of the General Conference and where our union is walking towards. Let me tell you a little bit about myself. My name is Eglan Brooks. I have been asked by the Trans-European Division of the General Conference to serve you as the British Union Conference President. I love what I do. I love this church, and I believe that God has led me to this organization to bring guidance, direction, and a sense of purpose to the region of our world church. I believe that addressing the things that matter will enrich the lives of our members, restore trust in the values we cherish, envision our leaders, and focus this union, which comprises of 2 conferences and 3 missions and institutions, in our God-given mission to reach the world. In this environment where we must operate as a church, a charity, and a corporation, it demands that our church functions differently at times. I wish I had the time to share with you my story. The Cliff Note version of my personal story is this. As a family, we had attended churches all our lives. At the age of 13, I had an encounter with Christ and was swept away by the love of God. And I made a choice in my life to give up a promising career in football and become an Adventist pastor. I have been absolutely blown away by how God has used me. I simply just want to give my life in service to him. Before we continue, allow me to thank you for joining me and for sending in questions even prior to today's State of the Union address. It is my desire to try to navigate some of the questions and themes which you have, while also seeking to provide you with the steps we are taking on some of these issues through the strategic plan and the plans based upon the newly voted value proposition of the British Union Conference. These priorities are not departmental specific. Let me be clear. We cannot change the world today. Change takes time, but I do recognize the need for change. Some of the questions and themes which have come in will be addressed. Others, interestingly, are really addressed but to the conferences and missions and institutions. So they form part of a wider conversation. My commitment to you will be to share these questions with the territory, firstly with the President's Council, and then allow them to navigate these issues supported by the BUC and our executive committees. Finally, thank you for engaging with me and allowing me to engage with you. Now, let me introduce to you a formidable journalist, a published author, and our BUC Stewardship Director, Catherine Anthony Boldo, as she guides me through exploring the strategic priorities addressing some of your questions. Kathy, every time I see Pastor Perry and hear him, it reminds me of so many precious things that he's brought to the Seventh-day Adventist Church. Yeah,
it's really interesting to hear him, even in his advanced years, that he was willing to participate in this presentation by doing the prayer, and we really do thank him for that.
I'd like to thank his family as well and especially Sister Perry for allowing him just to share this moment with us. I also must recognise that there are a number of retirees who have served the church faithfully, and we shouldn't move forward without expressing our gratitude for them.
So, Pastor Brooks, anybody else want to thank before we start?
Oh, yes. We must thank Dr. Steve Thomas and the Chiswick Seventh-day Adventist Church for their hospitality. We want to recognise that this is a collaboration between the Chiswick Church and the BUC media team that we have here. So we thank them for allowing us to use this church today. If you don't mind if I just make myself a little bit more comfortable.
Look, I'm not going to grill you that hard. Well, that's not true. I'm going to grill you hard. Okay?
I know you well enough.
I know. I'm going to grill you hard. But let's give him a moment to take off your tie. Okay. You okay? You comfortable now?
Yep.
Okay. Right. Okay. So I'm gonna start easy. Let's just go easy. Just gently kind of ease into it. So, Pastor Brooks, tell us about your journey from pastor to the BUC presidency.
Kathy, if I'm honest with you, it was a difficult journey because although I had served in the SEC as Pathfinder and Teams Director for 6.5 years and served on the SEC Executive Committee, and also in the BUC I had served in a number of departments and served on the Executive Committee till about 2017. These things could not really prepare me for what I would face as a president. I'm not sure if the challenges that I've faced could be faced by many people without having the support of the spiritual blessing. But I'm in my mind, I'm like Samuel running to put the oil of anointing on Eliab and not choosing the outlier as God would have chosen the shepherd boy called David. I need to understand why in order to create this strategic plan. And I need to understand what God is trying to do with me.
So you're saying that, you wouldn't have chosen yourself as you were an outlier. So what were your first 100 days like? They said the first 100 days for leadership is very, very crucial. What was it like?
The first 100 days was really, really hard. I found myself talking to people who had served in the position before. I spoke with the previous president. He gave me some great advice, and he offered to be available for me to lead me. But I spent most of that time listening, learning, trying to understand the who and who we are as a BUC organisation. I don't think it was clear in my mind. I think over the years, in trying to listen to the missional slogans that had been coming out, they had been brilliant. There was a famous one that you and I would remember called "Each One, Reach One."
Yes.
And then we had this one: "Reach Up, Reach Out, and Reach." I think it was in or around. I can't remember. But I think these strategic plans, which included not just, I wanted to write a strategic plan that was not just missional, but included our strategic direction also. No disrespect to the individuals who wrote the missional plans before, but I believe we wanted to be focused not simply on our mission, but on how our strategy affected our church, our charity, and our corporation. So, excuse me, Kath, I'm learning. Our language must evolve. Sometimes when I want to say church, you'll hear me say church when I should be saying BUC. Or you hear me say church when I really want to be talking about conference. Or you hear me say church when I'm talking about the membership of our church. So if you hear me get it wrong, just kick me under the table.
Believe me, I will do.
The strategic plan really is the BUC's real first attempt to clarify who we are and evolve and develop.
So, Professor Brooks, we're here for the State of the Union. I think we heard at the top of the session where you spoke about the State of the Union, but can you actually give us a clearer view of what it is? You know, why are we here?
So let me first thank the BUC Executive Committee for just being helping us drive this process of creating a strategic plan that the organisation can follow. When we talk about the State of the Union, it's not just a one-off event. It's a series of events where we're listening, we're learning, we're trying to leverage the lessons that we've learned. It's about people, our policy, and our processes. The State of the Union started at the top of the organisation, and we looked at how the Executive Committee functioned. So we developed a State of the Union that embraced the town hall meetings of all Executive Committee members, past and present, and also those serving in the two conferences and the 3 missions. We were trying to explore our strategic risk, our decision making. We wanted to learn lessons from our past to help us with our future. The State of the Union is also the President's Council. So we wanted to create a safe place to support the presidents in the field with strategic issues and driving policy across the territory. The State of the Union, it is about strengthening the board with non-executive expert advisors so that our decision-making can be better. The State of the Union, when you hear that term, it's the BUC value proposition, and it describes the BUC's unique concept in this territory. I discovered that we are a church, we're a charity, and we're a corporation. It's not a new concept, but I didn't want to ignore our missional drive as well as our strategic drive. I wanted to put our mission and our strategy together.
And combine them, okay.
We wanted to combine them so we could come up with 12 strategic priorities. And I think you can see those
on the screen right now.
priorities right now on the screen. Kathy, I'm proud of the strategic plan, and I want to thank the Executive Committee members for the way in which they've supported the development of the State of the Union. I want to thank my officers for the role which they played and the directors who are now trying to fulfill the strategic KPIs.
Pastor Brooks, just let's take a minute and go to the first of the priorities, reflecting Christ.
Our mission to share the love of Christ and bring others to know him is the foundation of the Seventh-day Adventist Church. But perhaps one of the most obvious but difficult positions to take was in understanding that our mission and focus can and must be part of our strategy. Regardless of our church, charity and corporation lens, our mission must be both internally and externally focused. Reflecting Christ in its very basic form is to see the individual, not solely church members, but society as a whole. It is not just about membership, but also about our workforce. It's not just about our pastors, but also about our schools, institutional partners, and support staff. Reflecting Christ is not a statement of fact, but it must be experienced as a statement of intent. This must be reflected in our actions, activities, programs, projects, strategy, legal and compliance, contractual agreements. Clearly, this is not an exhaustive list. This strategic priority, though the name might change, will never move from our focus.
Reflecting Christ. Now, when I first saw that priority, I was a bit kind of bemused because I thought to myself, reflecting Christ, it's a foundational principle of our faith, of the Christian faith. So why choose that as your first strategic priority?
Well, Kathy, organisationally, the British Union Conference was set up to establish the gospel in this part of the world. Mm-hmm. Our mission statement, if you ask any Adventist, they'll point back to Matthew 28, 18 to 20. Mm-hmm. All power is given unto me in heaven and in earth. Go and preach. So the General Conference even are talking about this issue of discipleship and making sure that we don't just win people into the church, but that we encourage them to become disciples. Mm-hmm. But as a church organisation, we have another purpose. Whilst we're trying to establish the good news of reflecting Christ in this territory, we also must ensure that we have proper processes, we engage people correctly, and we have policies that we follow. We must, in some respects, realign our mission and our strategic priorities to reflect the biblical mandate, balancing our charitable obligations and our legal compliance requirements and our business structure to help us better reflect Christ. Mm. If we're honest, we've not always reflected what good looks like. And sadly, this imbalance can sometimes hurt people. So,
Pastor, you mentioned the word hurt people. And I want to just pause there. And I'm going to ask you something that's kind of delicate, things people want to talk about and maybe don't talk about in back rooms. But I want to ask you, for people who are listening who have been hurt by the church and who have been, sometimes some of them have said distressed and hurt, what do you say to them as your first strategic priority as a union says, reflecting Christ? What do you say to these people who are hurt?
Kathy, I understand that even though we have this fantastic theme of reflecting Christ, I understand sometimes we don't get it right. Mm. I understand that as church, we hurt people. Mm-hmm. You and I know individuals who've been hurt by what this church have done. Personally, I'm sorry for the hurt and the pain. But we must learn lessons. We must document what has happened in the past to help us be better in the future. I think we have to find a way of balancing the issues that we face as individuals trying to reflect Christ and also individuals trying to be compliant with the things that are in front of us. Mm-hmm. So there must be some kind of balance between humility and being right. There must be a balance between legislation and reconciliation. Mm. There should be a balance between our policy and our purpose, a balance between our church doing mission and as a church, an organisation.
So you're saying that we haven't always reflected Christ, but the BUC's taken that seriously. Mm-hmm. Thank you so much.
Can I just say that we had a pastor, late Dalbert Elias, I don't know if you remember him. Yes. He always used to talk about that text in 2 Corinthians 5:18 through to 19, I think it is, where he talks about our ministry is one of reconciliation. We are ministers of reconciliations, but we must also operate with or within the confines of policy, constitution, and legislation. We've got to fix the system. We've got to.
Much to think about. While we're reflecting on that, Pastor Brooks, Let's go to our next priority, which is asset management.
One of our blessings in the emergence of Adventism in the British Isles has been the acquisition of our assets. These assets now include church buildings, centres, schools in numerous locations. However, it also includes our partnerships and resources. The desire of the British Union Conference is to demonstrate good governance in the management and strategic direction of all of our assets. Much of this to date has been exploratory and examines historical context and partnerships while identifying how best the BUC can hold, support and guide the governance of all our assets. In addition, it encourages us to see where the gaps may be. Do we have assets which are intellectual property? Do we have assets which are not covered by our insurance or legal frameworks? This is an enormous body of work which has begun at the executive committee level. Inevitably, this will take time, but we are committed to being on a journey of discovering how we might safeguard the historical assets which our parents, grandparents, and great-grandparents invested into, while also looking at how we can set up systems, frameworks, and structures to continually safeguard these assets.
Asset management. Now, Pastor Brooks, we're sitting in this beautiful church, beautiful Chiswick Church, and once again we want to thank Dr. Steve Thomas for allowing us to use this space. So, some people would say that the Seventh-day Adventist Church in the British Union Territory is very asset-rich. We have properties like this church building, we have the Union Office, we've got schools. How do we acquire these assets?
Catherine, we must give credit to the pioneers, the early Adventist pioneers, who, in their business sense, into how they handled the development of our church, they didn't just come and establish churches. They brought land. They put our colleges on significant pieces of land. They had a vision and a business acumen that they applied to the gospel, and that is what we're enjoying right now. The wealth of their expertise in purchasing assets for the organisation is what we've been living on. But we must find a way of sustaining that vision. We shouldn't just be utilised in the resources, but we have to find a way of maintaining the vision that they have. We must look at the way in which we're dealing with our business assets in a way that will also sustain our structure that we have. We need to find a way of maintaining what we have. So our challenge is, how do we sustain our assets, like our buildings, etc.? The solution, in my mind, is to improve our processes, embrace better governance procedures, improve our decision making, attract educated, experienced experts to help to guide us.
I'm going to go there with you in a little while. You know that I'm going to go there. So I'm going to ask you another kind of challenging question. I know that, I'm glad you got your tie off because this is a challenging one. And this one is, you talk about these assets, but people are like, some of our churches are struggling. Some of them are struggling with the church buildings, roofs are collapsed. Some churches are closed, haven't been open since the pandemic. What do you say to them? What do you say? Well, we're managing our assets. What do you say to those churches and those members?
I understand your question to me. I myself have come from a church which up until still hasn't had the opportunity to purchase its own building. I think as a church we had limited expertise. I think we had limited personnel. I think we have limited...
What do you mean employed in the organisation?
Yes, I think we have limited resources to manage our assets, including and to make not only just manage, but to make our assets compliant and following the legislative rationale behind what we're doing, and also ensuring that we have the charity guidelines in the back of our minds. But the executive committee and our approach of non-executive expert advisors can see us move forward in this area. We are committed to have non-executive expert advisors attracted to the BUC Executive Committee as advisors. We have just recently put out an advert for these individuals to be part of our committee. So I'm hoping that those individuals listening online would also put in their application to be a part of the British Union Executive Committee. We're really committed to moving the church forward.
And you think this is going to help the situation with these churches that are closed and are struggling to stay open?
Well, I think it's the first step, isn't it? Our non-executive expert advisors can help us improve our decision making. They can guide our responsiveness. They can address the questions that we haven't even thought about yet. And you will always keep hearing me look at this statement, which I'll continue to make my mantra. What does good look like? We won't be able to answer that until we have the educated, experienced experts looking at the decisions which we're facing and helping us to improve what we do.
Okay, Pastor Brooks, I'm going to ask you just this last question in this section. So, it's a specialism, and so I think you've answered it for me.
Yes.
You're seeking to protect your assets by appointing these
non-executive expert
advisors. And these people are going to be at what level? They're going to be at...
We're asking them to come on the BUC Executive Committee.
Okay, board level.
At board level. So that I really think we need to fix the Executive Committee first before we can do anything else in our territory. So they're going to come on at board level.
Thank you. Next we're going to talk about resources. We're going to like this one. Resources.
Never before in the history of the Adventist Church in the United Kingdom and Ireland have we seen such high levels of experience, qualification, and expertise as we have now. Our members have invested in the next generation's education, and they are progressing into their chosen careers. Historically, our resources were focused on written literature. However, we now have a plethora of writers, designers, photographers, illustrators at all levels and in various industries. We have specialists and experts in our membership who are able to contribute knowledge, share insights, and support the Adventist Church in the UK, reflecting this in the development and creation of resources. How might we develop and increase our resourcing, both written and digital, to reflect how society is currently looking, listening, and learning? How can we provide the landscape for thought leaders to create Adventist-focused and digital evangelistic resources? The BUC has an awesome task of developing resources for the territory that are reflective of new and emerging communication tools in collaboration with our institutions, Stamper Press and the Adventist Discovery Centre. We are journeying towards this.
What would you say is the historical role of resources in the Seventh-day Adventist Church, especially in the BUC?
Well, the historical role of resources, especially in the Adventist Church and the BUC, was about sustaining who we are as an organisation. It was helping us to proclaim the gospel and maintain a unity of our organisation. So many people remember this booklet which was produced called Present Truth. It was a significant tool that James White used with the early pioneers to help maintain the unity of our organisation and proclaim the gospel. Some of us will remember some of the beasts and images that we have seen in the past in the old presentations that we used to have with Daniel and Revelation. But today, with the speed of technology and communication, we need to find a different way of telling the same old gospel at speed, the same speed that we're seeing it change in today's in our mindset today. So
we're talking. What I'm hearing you say is we have the same gospel but told in different ways. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to ask you about this. We live in an age of technology. Mm-hmm. Communication, but resources have changed over the years, and there's so many different media and media types at our disposal. What is your vision for their use in the BUC? Because things like TikTok and Snapchat and Pastor Brooks with me?
Well, Kathy, you know technology is not my specialism. My real desire is to create resources to remain relevant as an organization and as accessible which reflects the diverse membership which we have and the communities that we have to reach. We're working with the BUC directors, ADC, Stanborough Press. We're trying to address some of the things that we used to do and modernize these things so they become relevant to today. So you will remember this new tool that we just put out called the Reflecting Hope. There are things like that we're looking at in how we develop in terms of our resources.
So your vision is that we're going to start using them across the territory?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So we're going to see some really great resources. Lovely. Okay. So Pastor Brooks, I want you to just go to the next one for your next section. You feeling okay?
I'm feeling fine.
You're feeling fine.
But I'm also thinking about your question. I think we must identify the new people which are around us. Don't be afraid of this term called new. We're not trying to ignore the old. What we're trying to do is to utilize the old message of Adventism and turn it into a new way of proclaiming the gospel to reach our communities. It is meeting the needs that we have today with the same gospel, not just a new way of proclaiming it, but using the same gospel with new tools. It's the same gospel using perhaps an iPhone. But whatever we do, we need to do some research. We need to gather data. We must be mission-focused and harness creativity so that we can develop innovative resources.
Okay, Pastor Brooks, so you're talking about people. We're creating resources for people. And people is our next priority.
To date, the BUC territory includes 440 employees across the British Union Conference, the North England Conference, the South England Conference, the Scottish Mission, the Irish Mission, and the Welsh Mission. This includes 116 teaching and support staff in our schools, along with a number of institutions and partner organisations. In addition, we have 495 retirees residing in various parts of the British Isles. This number is constantly growing. With the rise and increase of our membership, we anticipate a membership of 45,000 by the end of 2025, all of whom serve in some way as volunteers and support local church organisation. It is no surprise that we have an increasingly ageing workforce, just like our membership. So, the focus has always been twofold. Our existing workforce, in its widest sense, every single employee across the British Union Conference, and every single retiree who has given their time and their lives to church as part of their work. How can we support, guide, look after the well-being of our existing workforce? How might we attract different types of expertise if we don't know how to look after the existing workforce that we have? How can we operate with this very changing environment where we span both UK and EU legislation? How might we attract talent, specialists, and those who are experienced and qualified in areas to support our workforce? This too is another evolving piece of work which the British Union Conference Executive Committee are seeking to address.
So, Pastor Brooks, we use the word people. Small word, big word. So, when we talk about people, what are you actually referring to as this is a strategic priority? What is it about?
Well, some people, when they think about people, they look at our organisation and they think it should be HR or human resources. But we really want to talk about people. And when we say people, we're not solely focusing on pastors. Our organisation has a number of areas that we must cover. So when we talk about people, we include all staff. We have about 440 staff that work for the organisation. We have a a number of volunteers that work throughout our churches. And I'm thinking, we can't even begin to number the volunteers as they serve in different departments, the elders, the deacons, the deaconesses. What about the pastors, both male and female? When we think about the teaching staff, we have teachers and we have staff at the school, so we need to be considering them. All the directors across all the territories, all our retirees. We have 495 retirees. We have more retirees than we have pastors who are actually working in the field. Can you believe that?
No.
Perhaps our model or of workforce is still based upon the 1970s model, or perhaps even earlier. Perhaps we have forgotten some of our workforce, or even worse, we simply ignore them. So our first steps is about recruiting a non-executive expert advisor for the executive committee whose sole purpose will be about focusing on people.
Okay, so when you talk about people, exactly, who are your priorities in talking about them? What are your three most important areas when talking about people? Because you mentioned retirees, you mentioned women. Which are your most important areas? I'm not putting words in your mouth.
Well, to say three, you kind of are. But all right. So in my head, I think about women. I think a lot about how we interact. I think about youth. I'm not sure where our youth is at this time. We think about retirees. They're underutilized. We're looking at also our ministers, our elders, our elderly, our children, the vulnerable individuals that are amongst us. But basic level of expectations that we should be seeing in our people is a way of engaging them with our values, both as an organization and as people.
So, Pastor Brooks, you mentioned children a little while ago. I want to go to our next priority. Our next priority is education.
Education is one of the tenets upon which our union has always stood. Education in the UK is often perceived by other countries as being leading in educational advancement, in techniques, and in innovative teaching practices. We have always historically been deeply proud of Adventist education. Indeed, it is renowned worldwide and holds much value across the globe. It is our desire to see the British Union Conference and its education providers across the territory as leading educational establishments. However, perhaps education should be seen in its wider context. How many of our families homeschool their children? How are we supporting them? Should we be looking at education and training? Should we be exploring how teaching and learning outcomes might sit within education and the training needs of our members? We must develop our education provision building upon the legacy which our pioneers left for us.
Education. Pastor Brooks, this is a topic really dear to my heart, okay? So we have 7 schools around the territory. What are some of the challenges of running those institutions?
I think if you've served on any of the executive committees, you'll think about our 7 schools, and you'll think about the resources that we're throwing at these 7 schools. But our outlook for education is more than the schools that we have. I know that we're following a missionary model that we've created policy on. When we look at our constitution, it has something about education in there. If we look at our charity commission, in the charity commission, our purpose is about education. But our educational institutions are more than 7 schools. In this territory, we'll also have Newbold. We have numerous preschools. We have an abundant amount of people who are homeschooling their children. So where do we put them in our education perspective? Plus, we have a wider education through the training weekends that we do as a church, even at the union office, at the conference office. We train our elders and our leaders. We have BUC training for the pastors. We have Pathfinder training. There's a plethora of training which we have in terms of an organisation, and we cap it under the heading of education. So perhaps it's time for us to adopt a different model of education. We must probably evolve our understanding of education and its providers. We need to think about self-sustaining, but with good governance and reporting structures. Perhaps it's time we think about education and our training in a different way.
Okay, so I first asked the question about the 7 schools, and you've given us a wider brief, which is very interesting. I need to go back to this question about the schools, because we've actually we had a question from someone which came in online by the deadline, and they asked the question, some might argue that the unions and conferences are wasting money on developing education. That's the first part of the question. It's today's GC Education Sabbath, and it seems to be appropriate to ask that why is it not affordable for individuals to send their children to Adventist schools? When they do they get value for money? I'm sorry, it came in, we need to answer it.
Personally, I think I would have loved to have gone to an Adventist school when I was a young child. I missed that opportunity. I think it would have helped me to become a better person. It would help me indeed to be able to share the gospel in a more significant way than I am already doing so. But education is crucial to what we do as an organisation. It's in our constitution as a church. It's in how we develop our education in Adventism that's really important for us. I think we're going to have some challenges because we know that this current government, plans to look at school fees, and we must also factor that in how we consider how we handle education in the future. As BUC, some time ago, we set up an education commission. We asked the education director of the British Union Conference to look at this. So perhaps it's time to reimagine what Adventist education will look like in our territory. It's not just going to be about 7 schools. It can't just be about that. It has to be about how education impacts the wider community that we have as a church. So, Kathy, just allow me to acknowledge the remarkable work of our head teachers. I'm not trying to dismiss anything that they've done. I think they're doing a wonderful job. Their staff, the resources that they work with, the limited remuneration which they receive, I think they're doing a fantastic job. But we must take a broader view of Adventist education than we have in the past.
Okay. Much to reflect on there, Pastor Brooks. So, next priority, communication.
During the pandemic, communication channels across the globe were fast-tracked and evolved to levels that were frankly unprecedented. Never in our wildest dreams could we have understood that church would hold services online as a primary source of engaging with church members and communities. Never in our wildest dreams could we have believed that schooling would take place online for 32 students. Never in our wildest dreams could citizen journalism be faster than our written or online press. Now, post-pandemic, before the BUC news can even be sent out on a Friday, news has already spread across the territory via WhatsApp, Telegram, and other messaging platforms, at speeds that we as an organisation, much like other organisations, would struggle to compete with. In addition, Every single department, project, program, including the offices of the president, all require communication channels at the heart of its work. How can the BUC respond to these needs? Do we need to view communications in a wider way? Perhaps communication and media and the needs of the church and the needs of the charity and the needs of the organisation all require different approaches, strategies and methods. Communication must be considered as a core function of the BUC.
Pastor Brooks, communication. Now, we live in an age, 21st century, don't smile at me like that.
Okay.
You know,
I won't smile. I'll be serious.
we live in an age where effective communication is essential for individuals and organisations. How is the BUC utilising communication effectively in the 21st century?
Well, Kathy, I think you're best placed to answer that question. That's why I was smiling at you, because having served as a communications director before, you certainly would have a better perspective on communication than I would have.
Yes, I would. But I want to know that, as the president, what is your vision for the BUC?
Well, historically, we've had different methods of communication. We've had written communication through the messenger, I think which is celebrating 140 years this year. We have digital communication, which the BUC News represents. We have online communication when we look at our website. We have social communication when we think about Facebook. We have Facebook people online listening to the BUC News. But how do we know what people use? And who's really listening to what we're doing? Is it old people? Is it young people? I know we have Facebook, and I think Facebook is for an older generation.
What mean us?
Well, I wouldn't.
Our generation is
yeah,
Facebook.
Yeah. All right. I concede that Facebook is probably for our generation. We have TikTok.
TikTok. Because I know you like to say tic-tac.
Yeah, TikTok. But we have other platforms for communication: Snapchat,
Telegram, yeah.
Instagram, LinkedIn. We have WhatsApp. I think my mum is on WhatsApp more than I am. Every day my mum's posting stuff online. But how do we know what people need in terms of how they're interacting with us in terms of communication? Which platforms are they on? We must use people specialisms too. How do we communicate with young and old people? And I think we must walk toward gathering data so that we can know where we need to move as an organisation.
Now, I'm going to say something quite controversial here, okay? And you know that I can be controversial at times, but I'm thinking about people like my dad in their 80s, etc., and your mum's probably not too far away from that. And they're using WhatsApp, and they're using platforms like reading their Sabbath school lesson online on their iPads. So there is this kind of view that they're not using digital media, but they are. But what I want to get to now is not just the elderly. You mentioned the elderly, you mentioned the young. What is your passion for using emerging technologies within the church? Like, dare we say it, AI and AI kind of other things like ChatGPT, and there's lots of things you can do with AI. What is your idea of using these really new technologies to advance the gospel? Well,
communication is my passion, but it's not my specialism. If you were listening to the BU or listening out for the BUC State of the Union Address some time ago, you'd realise that I'm not that great with the technology. But I have a passion to see people engage in communication. I want to see the church evolve what it's doing in terms of how it nurtures our concept of creative storytelling. I want to see us celebrating some successes that we've had in the past. We don't always celebrate as an organisation the way we should. We want to see communications being able to support the departments better. We want to see us building upon communication methods for greater impact, both inside of our church and outside in the communities where we're situated.
So, Pastor Brooks, what we're going to be seeing is that you're going to have this really nice little TikTok account, Instagram account. You know, watch out for that. Watch out. That's going to be quite interesting.
I'll try to maintain it with my one finger.
Thank you so much. Our next strategic priority is policy.
Our Seventh-day Adventist policy is an area which the BUC must hold and drive. The development of policy of any member-based organisation should be informed, in part, based upon practice, and also based upon the emerging needs of its membership in its widest sense. It also becomes more interesting as we are governed by the General Conference and often directed by their own policy development mechanisms. However, the BUC must ensure that we have a clear outline of where we would like to go and which policies require development in order to facilitate our growth and journey. So perhaps for the BUC, we may need to continue to ask ourselves the following questions. Where are we going? How are we going to get there? Which policies require updating, modifying, or even creating to facilitate our journey and reflect our unique environment in the British Isles and the Republic of Ireland? We must also engage with the entire territory, the conferences and the missions, to help them discover their own journey and how we can facilitate policies and policy development which supports their own growth. This is indeed no small task.
Policy. So policy, when we talk about policy, it sounds grand, it sounds big, it sounds like paperwork to me. And I want to know, the church adheres to a myriad of policies as a church, charity and corporation. Have I got that right?
Yes.
Okay, got it right. So what challenges do this myriad of policies present to the organisation?
Kathy, when I discovered that we have a church, charity and a corporation, it kind of blew my mind. You know, we have some challenges when it comes to balancing who we are as a church, charity and a corporation with a legal umbrella that we have to look after as a church with the charitable responsibilities. We have a challenge with balancing our policy and our mission. We have a challenge in balancing GC policy with UK and EU regulations and legislations which are out there. It's a challenge of policy versus our current practice in my mind. And sometimes we don't always practice our policies efficiently. And maybe the policy's there, we are just not following it, or it no longer reflects what we need. Yet, our policy must reflect the needs of our conference and missions and evolving membership, balanced with the concept of us being a church, a charity, and a corporation. And I keep emphasizing the fact that we must be led by experienced, educated experts, people who understand this concept. If we don't address this issue, we won't function. We function in risk. We function at risk. We function poorly as an organisation.
But, Pastor, I hear you. I really hear you. But, you know, we've changed government. There can be an accident tomorrow and policy will change. Something can occur somewhere that, you know, education policy will probably change. And policy is always changing. That's the nature, that's the landscape of it. How does a church with limited staff keep up with these number of changes that keep on occurring in so many areas? As you said, you're a church, so you abide by GC policy, you're a charity law, corporation, legal and business regulations. How do you keep up with that?
Kathy, I think I'll keep this one, my answer simple. We must be guided by policy. We must be guided by the processes which we have. We must be guided by the Constitution.
But it changes.
Yes, it changes, but we still have to abide by what we have already voted as an organisation. We must be intact with the legislation which is there, but we have to abide by the voted actions of the executive committee. We must be guided by our educated, experienced experts in this area. Otherwise, we walk into trouble as an organisation.
Okay, right. So you've mentioned these NEAs, non-executive
Expert
advisors.
advisors.
I think at some point we're going to put that on the screen for anybody who believes that they're interested in these particular roles and want to know more about them. They'll be coming up on the screen a little bit later on. So, Pastor Brooks, we've finished this section for now, and we're going to go on to head office, where all these policies seem to come from. Head office.
The British Union Conference head office has the most amazing staff team, which supports the work of the directors and the administration. Currently, the BUC head office has a staff team of 40 people, including directors and support staff. The head office structure reflects the needs of the conferences and missions in their governance and evangelistic purpose. The BUC also has governance responsibilities for the institutions which support the work within the territory. In addition, the BUC has unique areas of responsibility by virtue of its delegated responsibility from the General Conference through the Trans-European Division. As a result, the organisation must comply with both the GC's policies and also the legislative and charitable obligations within the British Isles and the European Union. Our desire calls for the BUC to be understood as the filter, the guide, and the curator of the British Union Conference territory.
Pastor Brooks, you know, every morning when you walk into the building, and before you even get into the building, there is this beautiful, beautiful park. The BUC is situated in nice parkland. What is in your heart every morning as you walk into the office and you look around and you... Apparently there are deer in the park. I've never seen them. There are badgers. I've never seen them. But what do you think when you step into the office, into the head office of the Seventh-day Adventist Church in the United Kingdom?
Well,
Republic of Ireland. Sorry.
of course.
Must add that in there too.
Well, I've seen the deers and the badgers, and the havoc they cause in some parts of the park. But personally, I think it's a privilege to work for the British Union Conference. When I think about the guy that's in the field maintaining the park, when I think about the individuals who are in the office, our secretaries, our directors, our officers, it's a great privilege and not a right for us to be able to serve God in a place where other Christians are. That's a real blessing for me each morning, so I know that I'm working with people with a smile on their face who enjoy the fact that they are Adventists working together. It's a real joy. That's the spiritual side of things. But honestly, Kathy, we are just like any other workplace. We are accountable to the laws of the land. We're accountable to each other. We are accountable to the organisation which we say we belong to. But I want us to work in a place where staff really enjoy coming to work, where we are all working towards one common goal, where our values means more to us than anything else, where everyone gives as much as they hope to receive. And I think sometimes when people work in organisations, we don't look at that. We tend to want the organisation to give us stuff. But I really think we should embrace the hope that we have in this organisation.
Okay. I'm going to ask you this question, okay, because it's been bothering me. Right, it's been bothering me a lot. So from head office is now... I'm going to go back there because I know you've mentioned it a lot, but I think that let's get it clear in my head, okay? We say we're a church, okay? So we've got a mission.
Yes.
We're a charity? What does that mean that we're a charity? 'Cause, I mean, you've been using these words and banding them about, but what does that mean? And a corporation, what does that mean? So we know what the church bit means, or we think we know what the church bit means, but what does the bit about charity and corporation mean for those who might not know?
Well, for individuals who have been a part of Adventism anywhere around the world, they will know that there is they are made up of two elements, a church and a corporation. When you think about the Brazil Union, it's a church, it's a corporation. When you think about the Jamaica Union, it's a church, it's a corporation. That corporation is always compliant with the government legislations and the laws of the lands. But in the UK, we have a unique perspective. We are also a church, a charity, and a corporation in the UK and the Republic of Ireland. In 1995, I think it was a charity. We took a voted action as delegates in our territory to move away from a limited company and take on charity status. And I'm not sure if the impact of that additional sector was ever clearly understood by all. As a church, we are governed by GC policy, which has a clear hierarchical system, a unique employment system, and a system of accountability. As a charity, we have pillars of the charitable organizations which talk about our organizational purpose, our leadership, the integrity, decision-making, including risk management, board effectiveness, diversity, and accountability. As a corporation, we have numerous legal frameworks, financial, regulatory things that we have to accomplish as an organization. It's complex, but this is who we are at the BUC.
So there's lots going on there. So for people out there, it's not just like another administrative level. There's a lot going on that we've got to adhere to.
Yes, yes, it's complex, but this is who we are.
Okay, so I'm going to ask you a question that maybe you won't like, but we're here for accountability and transparency this afternoon. So I'm going to ask you this question, okay? Okay, I'm going to just pause for a minute. So, Pastor Brooks, the British Union Conference, let me just rephrase that question. Pastor Brooks, how are you getting on with recruitment these days? How's recruitment going? How is it, people coming to work in the head office?
Well, Kathy, we have some outdated systems. We have outdated processes. We have outdated practices in how we give due diligence to what we should be doing.
What you said on the BUC website was you'd have recruitment on appointed and elected
That's
staff.
right.
Is that correct?
That's right.
Okay.
So we're still looking at employing permanent individuals. But while we're in that process, that limbo, we are really looking for the NIA to help us with this aspect of how we handle people.
Okay, and when you get this new NIA,
That's in charge of people.
People, you'll
Yes.
you'll resume the recruitment process.
Well, that, and once we clarify exactly what we should be doing as an organisation, we'll start resume our processes.
Okay, so lovely. Okay, thank you for that. So, Pastor Brooks, we have a break. We have a little break now, and we're going to look at safeguarding when we come back.
The evolving area of safeguarding is one which we simply cannot ever ignore. In fact, we do not want to ignore it. It is one of the tenets upon which we maintain our charitable status. So with that being said, our safeguarding protocols require strategic leadership, which is at the cutting edge of the ever-expanding and evolving area of safeguarding. Questions we ought to consider include: which areas of safeguarding are we currently blind to? Which areas of safeguarding require operational support? How does safeguarding influence and impact our various programs and projects which we as a union and territory run regularly? What are the mechanisms required for constant evaluation and evolution of our processes and procedures? Additionally, we have a number of schools, numerous older and vulnerable adults, and an immeasurable growing number of children and young people who come into our buildings week after week. We can no longer simply hope that all will be okay. we have a legal obligation to engage with safeguarding in a far more intrinsic and expert way, both strategically and operationally.
What is your priority for safeguarding in this territory?
For me, the safeguarding vision must be to create a territory which is safe for all people, inclusive of age, gender, ability, other protected characteristics. Our first priority has to be at board level to recruit a NIA, a specialist for safeguarding. What about when you think about the children, when you think about vulnerable adults, when you think about the elderly? We just heard Pastor Perry pray, and we think about how we look after individuals like that who's given so much of their lives to the church. I'm not sure if we're doing the best things. We must re-educate our members as to what we need to do when it comes to establishing good safeguarding principles across the territory.
So, this month has been dedicated by the BUC and SEC as End It Now. Okay, and End It Now is about ending violent abuse across the Seventh-day Adventist Church worldwide. And next Sabbath is a special day of End It Now. So I know the BUC are doing something along with the other entities about this, but I want to ask you about psychological safety within the organisation and also spiritual abuse. What is the BUC doing to address those issues as well as the other forms of abuse?
Kathy, I think you raised some important areas. I think our best approach to this as an organisation must be looking at what we do at board level. I think our key here is to look at what we need in terms of the NIA and the safeguarding of our organisation. I think that's our priority.
Okay, so you believe that having this NIA is going to help you to change systems whereby you're going to be able to improve safeguarding across the territory?
Well, I believe so. And then we can, if we have the experts giving us advice, then we have a chance at fixing a system which is broken. If we try to fix a system that's broken without that expert advice, we will continue to be in the mess that we have experienced over the years.
Okay. So I think that's going to come up on the screen at some point, applications for the
non-executive expert advisors.
That's coming up.
And I think there are 5 of them.
Okay.
If I'm correct, legal, safeguarding, compliance, asset management, and people.
Okay. Right, so that's going to come up shortly. So Pastor Brooks, you mentioned legal. Legal is our next priority.
Our legal obligation to both the United Kingdom and the European Union is unquestionable. However, our compliance, when viewed through the lens of our schools, our ministry, our safeguarding, our people, our finance and accounts across all of these separate entities, is indeed immense. Our ability to comply, ensuring that it is balanced between our policy and legal obligations, as well as the development of our people, systems and processes, which all sit within legal frameworks and guidelines, is a never-ending work. However, we must ensure that we future-proof ourselves by enlisting the right expertise in and around the organisation, which is agile enough, expert enough, but also skilled enough.
So, you know that over the years...
I feel like I'm on trial here at the moment.
You're not on trial. Let's see how I can frame this nicely then. Okay. So, I understand that some entities within the BUC territory have had several legal issues. How has this impacted the reach of the church as a charity, BUC as a charity, church, charity and corporation? Because it must have affected the BUC in some way.
I think you're asking me a difficult question. I think we have some complex historical issues that we're dealing with as a church. Who knows why? Is it the system? Is it the process? Is it the people? Who knows? Either way, it has impacted our territory. But We must strive towards best practice as the BUC. We must be able to balance Christian principles with what is happening in the secular world. We must move towards compliance. We must see effective reporting and building accountable frameworks for all people, all with the integrity, trust, and accountability. I think we should be guided by our near people, the educated, experienced experts that the board is recruiting.
Okay, so Pastor Brooks, I mean, Mr. President, I'm going to say this. Mr. President, okay, forgive me, but you sound like a politician right now. The legal issues, people are being affected by it.
Yeah, you can call me a politician if you want, but we have some historical complex issues. It's not as simple as just stepping in and trying to resolve certain things. Personally, when I see some of the legal issues that are going on, and you talk about legal, but you're really focused on the legal cases. But I think about the widow's mite and the lady who gives, or the man who gives, the best they could towards the church, and realizing that that gift helps support the work of the church and our system across our territory. I myself am a beneficiary of someone who gave me some finances so I could get to uni and stay in uni and be protected. But please, all I'm asking for the territory to do is to give us the space and the time to develop a sustainable system with the BUC executive for our organisation. It's time for us to refrain our understanding, or to reframe our understanding away from legal issues and more towards developing best practice and accountability across our BUC territory and across our the areas that we represent in terms of a church, a charity, and a corporation. Thank you. I think you've got that message now.
I think I've got the message. I think everybody's got the message now. We're a church, we're a charity, and we're a corporation. Let's go to the next one, a strategic priority, and that is finance.
At the BUC, we have to manage our finances with precision using skilled and experienced individuals within the Treasury Department. This is an area which we are deeply proud of. Our decision making is supported and guided by financial systems and structures. The BUC Treasury Department works closely with the conferences and the missions, and also the General Conference. It also works within legal structures as it relates to finance, guided expertly by educated and experienced individuals. With that being said, finance simply cannot be the driving force of our church, charity, and corporation. Responsive and strategic finance is required, which sits hand in hand with our other charitable and legal and missional focus.
So, Mr. President, how does the BUC protect its finances?
We have experienced, educated experts. Kathy, it works.
Well, okay,
It works,
okay.
Kathy.
I must admit, Treasury are very educated.
That's right.
Our finance department
Yes.
is very educated.
Why don't we replicate it in other in other specialist areas?
Yeah.
We should be in a great place if we did that. As an organisation, it still has room for growth. Like aligning expenditure with its KPIs. Being data driven, mission focused. So there's still a way to go. But if you look at the finance that we have as an organisation, I think we're in a fantastic place.
So we're in a fantastic place, but what do we do with this money that we get in? How do we support the worldwide church, or how do we support the local church?
Well, I think that concept of the widow's mite, you're always going to hear me keep talking about, because I think it's such a powerful analogy. We at the union benefit from what the local church member gives towards the church. When an individual gives their offering, it goes towards the local church. A portion of that gets given to the conference office in terms of their tithes. Then some of the tithes is given to the British Union Conference, and then some of that tithes is given to the Trans-European Division, the General Conference. So that system of supporting the church across the world has been functional and it's fantastic. I want to say a big thank you to our membership for their faithfulness in giving of their tithes. I don't think the BUC would be as strong as it is without the support of the widow, the individuals in our churches giving tithes to support. Even through the pandemic, we actually were able to survive as an organisation. We've developed an umbrella, and we're about to release that in a few months, and that will explain how the BUC strategically uses its widow's mite in terms of how we are utilising this concept of the value proposition.
Thank you, Pastor Rex. Well, we've almost come to the end. You must be very, very grateful.
So quick.
So quick, okay. Oh, I can
No, you carry on.
Okay, and we're on our last priority, which is an evolving priority. So I want to really kind of question you on that one, the evolving priority.
Our Seventh-day Adventist fundamental beliefs, our mission and message, young people, community outreach, ministry to women, safeguarding of older members, majority population evangelism, constitutional needs, policy developments, our nominating process, education, post-COVID church, online worship and its impact on in-person fellowship and attendance, culturally responsive evangelism, the training and upskilling of our ministers, proportional representation, children's Sabbath school, children's church, church and abuse, church and psychological safety.
Now, when the strategic plan came out in 2022, was it? September 2022, there was this blank on strategic priority number 12, and it's now called an evolving priority. Several people have asked about this and made suggestions of what the 12th priority could be. Why is it left blank?
Well,
I mean,
Kathy, this is the most fascinating priority for me. It's the most talked about. We've received the most feedback. We've had so many suggestions as to what people think is the best way forward, but it's left intentionally blank. We're always reminding ourselves, and it should remind me, of our work is an evolving work, and it's never ending. So we're never going to get to the place where we say, this is it in terms of us as an organisation. Our desire really is to create a union which operates with integrity, which see individuals being passionate about our missional focus, yet with credible business practices. This will not end until our Christ returns.
you know me. I'm going to ask you again. There must be something that you want to kind of just push in there quickly at the end. Just something that's dear to your heart.
Kathy, there are numerous things which I could say, but they're all important to me. The challenge is which one is the one that the BUC needs to adopt. And I'm thinking that if we fill that gap now, then we will see some challenges later on that we will also want to change. So for me, as we have the strategic plan, that's the best place that we can keep it.
Pastor Eglan Brooks, President of the BUC, thank you so much for taking the time to sit down and talk to me.
Thank you, Kathy, and I hope that God will continue to give us the wisdom and the strength to make this church a better place until he comes. Well, thank you for sharing this time with me. I'd like to thank Catherine Anthony Boldo for holding me accountable in this address. In the weeks and months to come, with the authorization from the Executive Committee, I will be seeking to gather more evidence, listening, learning, and engaging skilled experts through the State of the Union series, the advisories, and my departmental directors too. Together, we will seek to provide you with the information so that we can embrace change. I want to close by acknowledging the giants on whose shoulders we stand, the innovators and pioneers of Adventism in the British Isles, those who open the door so that this organization can enjoy abundant living. My challenge, your challenge, our challenge is to hold on to the legacy, and just like the story of the 10 talents, we seek to grow, nurture, and develop the system, structure, and the culture that they left us. So to those skilled, experienced experts listening, come and be a part of developing the legacy which has been given to us. Let us make more giants upon whose shoulders the younger generation can also stand. I want to celebrate the contributions of the British Union Conference Executive Committee, my staff, the BUC executive officers, directors and support staff, who are hardworking and committed individuals with a love for the work of the union. I also want to acknowledge my coach, the strategist co, my project manager, and my executive assistant. Thank you for being on this journey with me. And may we continue to serve our God as he governs our church. Finally, I want to thank our gracious Father in heaven, who has saved us and commissioned us to call others to a deeper understanding of his matchless love. This is my State of the Union address.
Dear God, as I think about the future, I ask for your help. I want to be inspired by leaders who have integrity, always being honest and doing what is right. I want to grow up in a church where respect to everyone is given, no matter who they are, because we all are your children and deserve to be treated kindly. Please show me people who take responsibility for their choices and actions and give others an opportunity to contribute so that when I grow up, I can do the same. I hear a lot about servant leadership. God, I pray for the adults around me that they will show me how to be a servant leader, like Jesus, caring for others and putting their needs before my own, serving with a happy heart. God, I think I need to see role models who keep their promises and are dependable, while being accountable for everything they do, remembering that I am a child and I am learning from them. I want to grow up in a world where we value each person and that I can see how special they are, because you made us all different, important and beautiful. These are scary times, but I'm part of a community and I want them to experience hope. May your church inspire others by sharing your love and being a light in the dark times, so everyone can feel your peace. That me and my friends can make the world a better place by showing love and kindness is everything we do. Dear God, for me to be the church for tomorrow, I need to see the church of today. You can do anything. Amen.
Well, thank you for joining us today for our first State of the Union address. For more details on the 12 strategic priorities, please visit our website. In addition, if you have any questions, points to raise, or indeed positive feedback, feel free to email us via the email below. For information on the non-executive expert advisor roles, use the QR code or visit our website on www.adventist.uk. We look forward to you joining us again for what comes next in the State of the Union series. God bless.